Bonjour everyone, I am Anne-Lise Cailliez and welcome to Parlez-Vous CEO, where we ditch the corporate talk and get real about entrepreneurship. Each week, I chat with founders and CEOs who build businesses their way, through the failures, pivots, and breakthroughs. And they bring the fire. Plus, I'll drop some golden nuggets of wisdom from my own entrepreneurial journey. This is your space to grow, learn, and evolve with a true growth mindset. Remember, success isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. Now let's kick things off and get this party started. Hello, bonjour, bonjour, hello. Welcome to another episode of Parlez-Vous CEO. My name is Anne-Lise Cailliez and I am your host. For those who are just joining the podcast, we are Annie's marketing partners and we specialize in helping female-led businesses scale their revenue. If you want to learn how to take your business to the next level, make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, just drop the word growth in the DMs. Today, I am specifically excited to have a friend joining us today as a guest. Her name is Elsa van der Voort. I actually didn't know how to pronounce her last name, even though I've known her for 15 years. Elsa, I am so excited to have you here. So for those of you listening, Elsa was a very pivotal person in my career because she inspired me to start my own business 10 years ago because I saw her being French and started her own business in New York. And it made it possible in my psyche to have my own business in New York. So you were instrumental in my growth, in my career, Elsa, and you're a dear friend of mine. And I'm so excited for our listeners to get to know you a bit better. Elsa, in your own words, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Thank you so much. That was an amazing intro, Anne-Lise. So I'm Elsa. I have a sales background and business background. So I studied, at a French business school. I worked quickly in Paris, for an IT consulting company at the time. And then when the crisis hit, I went to New York, so I had my first experience in New York as an employee, still IT consulting company. I spent my entire career in the IT space and innovation. And so I started my first business in 2010. First business was in Paris. Second was in New York and I opened it in 2012 actually. I ran this business in New York for 10 years. I sold it in November 2022. And in the meantime, I moved to Montreal to create another business. This one was to focus more on software, especially in artificial intelligence, still dedicated to the finance industry because it's the only industry that I do know. And so, here I am.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Elsa. And for those of you listening, for the backstory, Elsa, in 2020, when it was right the heart of COVID, I remember my business was struggling. I was losing clients left and right. We all felt super uncertain. This girl just picked up a truck from New York, her cat, and moved to Canada by herself and started another business she is so brave. She's always inspired me so much. She's always been so inspiring and always uplifting because I think when you really see people around you just creating and daring and being so bold, that's so inspiring. So Elsa, you've been a serial entrepreneur and you've built 3 businesses.
Yeah.
Could you tell our audience a little bit like how you all had the idea to start each of them and maybe the one you enjoyed the most building versus the one that maybe presented the most challenges?
Yeah, for sure. So first, I would say that it's I always had this in me, I kind of always knew since I'm a kid that I would be an entrepreneur at some point, or maybe work for a huge company, and be a big boss somewhere. I knew I would have a lot of responsibilities. And as a kid and even as a teenager, I always had business ideas, so it was kind of leading me, but I was really, really shy at the time. And so for my first company, I had the occasion to have all the different roles possible that you can have in an IT consulting company. So, I used to be like HR, a recruiter, admin, and then sales. So I knew everything about a consulting company. So then I was like, why wouldn't I do that, only for myself? Because I guess as an employee, sometimes it was hard for me, and especially working with men, like the finance and tech are both men. How do you say that?
Male-dominated industries.
Thank you. Male-dominated, industries. And so it was definitely not that easy. So that's why at some point I was like, you know what, do it for yourself. If you fail, you could blame only you. And worst case scenario, you can be successful. So that's how I started my first company. So back in Paris, it was called Elsa Consulting. In French, we say "aile," which means wings, So it was my freedom kind of. And I guess the one that I enjoyed the most was the company that I had in New York. It was super challenging. I wasn't sure I would make it, but the journey was actually impressive and amazing, And what is even more amazing is that I started it like from scratch on my own, just with like these hands, and this brain. And I ran it for 10 years, and 10 years later, so I had employees, And 10 years later, someone was interested in that business and was interested enough to buy it from me. And that was pretty amazing, to say, oh my God, I ran it from A to Z and someone wants it. So this one was my best journey as an entrepreneur. And you mentioned the one that was the most challenging, right? So that's the last one. Super challenging because so it was software, AI software for the finance industry. I've never done a software. I've never done AI before. And so, okay, it was for the finance industry, but we were not necessarily focusing on capital markets, which was the industry that I knew the best. So I guess I was way out of my comfort zone, and launching a product is so hard. So I learned it the hard way, but I think I don't regret it. Maybe give me some time, but I'm sure in a couple of months from now, I would be able to say that I have no regrets because I learned so much, on what to do and what you shouldn't do when you have a business, when you have business partners, and when you launch a product, especially like a tech product.
I really believe that it's actually through the very difficult experiences, especially in business, that we learn the most. Because when a company is being run well and there is no issue and it's cruising, there is no drama, and there is definitely some lessons there. But I really think that as an entrepreneur, you learn when there are problems and a lot of problems to solve. So I have no doubt that you will look back at this experience with a lot of wisdom, especially to possibly start your next venture, because you now have so many more tools, right? And so many more experiences under your belt as well, of things to do and things not to do, people to work with and maybe people not to work with. And that comes with pain.
Yeah, for sure.
As well.
And I think it even works the same, when you drive your career. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, you still go through struggles. And I know many people, and I guess even myself, before that experience, I didn't really had struggles, Okay, I had some struggles, but I overcame everything. And I really felt that everything was pretty easy. And so I always thought that nothing could go wrong, So maybe at some point I was overconfident on, like whenever I do something, it works anyway. So like, go ahead, take some risk and it's going to be fine. And there I realized like, oh, okay, maybe I didn't think about everything. And so, I think as an employee, it works the same way. So enjoy the struggle and enjoy your failure, like embrace it. Because I always felt that my biggest failures became my biggest success, at some point. So my next venture should be the good one.
But I believe that there is some benefit to having that mindset of like, whatever I'm going to start is going to work out anyway, because this is, what happened before. And so I think it's not the luck of the beginner, but I'm pretty sure that when I was in my early 20s getting my first job in New York, I was very bold and I thought I knew everything about everything. And it's not that I really had the experience to face failures before because I was so green. So, it's almost like credit score, right? When you have zero credit score, it's a good credit score here. When you don't have a bad credit score, so it works similarly when you don't really have a background. You're like, oh, it's gonna work out. So because you arrive untouched and really green and almost innocent and naive. So I think there is some beauty to that, but there's definitely also benefits to going through the motions and overcoming a lot of obstacles that definitely bring a lot of wisdom, especially when you're a serial entrepreneur.
I think I remember you from that time.
From the cocky times?
Exactly, yeah.
And still some cockiness, around that doesn't leave, Also, we are French. I think that comes to us naturally.
That may be true.
I also remember you telling me because, I mean, when I started my business and life in general, I think when you're an expat in New York, things will happen to you. There will be like ups and downs and immigration and visas, investor visa, being an entrepreneur. It comes with its bag of ups and downs just
For
by being
sure.
like an expat abroad. And I think that really can build stamina and resilience. And I remember you were telling me that I'm like a cat. Every time I would have some drama, you're like, yeah, you in 2 months, it's already forgotten and you're on to your next thing. And I feel the same way about you, you know? You're like, oh, well, this didn't work out. And boom, you're already like on to your next company. Yeah, and that's resilience. There is something to it.
That's so true. I remember I told you that, and yeah, maybe I'm a cat too.
I mean, we're definitely cat ladies too.
And because of you.
I definitely converted a few friends of mine who now have, it's a lot of girls in New York who have 2 cats now.
Do you have shares in this nonprofit that you're helping?
No, but there could be a viable business model there, you know, cat ladies taking over the world. So Elsa, tell us about your current project. So what are you currently working on? What do you see for yourself in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so actually, so currently I'm an employee. It's funny because so when I had my last company, it was at like an incubator, for startups, for fintechs. And so I left my company because this one didn't work out for many different reasons. And when I left my company, so I told the incubator, thank you guys. Thank you for welcoming me, etc. But I'm leaving the project. And so 2 weeks later, they contacted me back like, hey, actually, we're looking for someone. Like, would you mind joining? Maybe you want to take a break from being an entrepreneur. So I was like, sure, why not? So right now I work for a nonprofit here in Montreal. I focus on innovation. It's super interesting because I make a lot of contacts, and so I work mainly with banks and insurance companies and checking with them like on how can I help them to what are the pain points in adopting innovation and how can we help them to overcome that and to go to the next step. So I'm trying to find some solutions for the Quebec industry, for the Quebec market, so for startups, but mainly for the big corporations as well. So it's super interesting. Still, it's a transition phase, So I guess as I'm born an entrepreneur, right, as I was saying earlier, I'm thinking about my next move and so my next step. So I may come back with news very soon about what is my next project.
And so for the entrepreneurs among us who are listening, because this is a bit of a $1 million question, I think when you're an entrepreneur and you're starting your business, it will cross your mind, what am I doing? Should I just get a normal job and do like everyone else? So I don't know any entrepreneur who doesn't think that once in a while, thinking like, why am I doing this? I could just have visibility on income. It would be so much more comfortable. Plus you see your friends, gaining in leadership and in hierarchy in their 2 jobs, and you're like, oh, it could be me. I could be so much more relaxed. It's not that it's completely rose and black and white, and that if you work in corporate and with a W2, your life is peaceful. That's not what I'm saying. But there is some tranquility and some advantages on visibility on income and not handling this kind of ups and downs. So for our listeners who are entrepreneurs and who are thinking, oh, maybe I should get a normal job, how was the transition from being an entrepreneur to going back to a salaried position? And is that something you would recommend for people going through periods of doubts?
Yeah. So I would say that first, when I moved from being an employee to being an entrepreneur, it was really hard. Exactly what you mentioned, because I saw my friends making more money and, giving me unsolicited advice, obviously, like, but why don't you do this and that, and in 3 months you should be able to sign your first deal and blah, blah, and I was struggling with so many different things and, saying, no, like it's not going to happen in 3 months, it's going to take me more time because of all of the things that I have to do that you don't have to do as an employee. So it was really hard. And of course, I went through self-doubt so many times because I was really struggling. Of course, I first ate like potatoes and pasta for a very long time. And so, you try to gauge like, okay, how much money I'm able to make as an entrepreneur versus as an employee, I would make way more. So I had these periods many times until I realized that, oh, actually, when you work a lot on your business, you can make way more money than an employee. And even if you don't want to work for a month or two, that's fine because you have your money and your company working for you, you know? So, but it took me a very long time to get to that point. And so today coming back as an employee, so it's not the easiest transition, but I would say that if you need it to kind of take a break, do it, you know, like entrepreneurship can be there anytime. So you can start early, you can start late, you know, and it's not because you're an entrepreneur that you have to die doing it. And so I see actually many entrepreneurs, you know, like being an entrepreneur, going back to an employee, then go back. Sometimes, I mean, you need to pay your bills, you know, and that's fine. And it's okay. And even when I had, you know, actually when I had my company in New York, so I had my company, but I was consultant as well myself, you know, so I was placing consultants, but I was a consultant myself. So it was helping me to make money for sure, you know, and good amount of money, like I was an employee. I was not an employee, but it was kind of. And then I had my employees working with me on the side. And so it helped me, you know, to grow my business, but without, I would say, too much pressure on how much I was making and on my margins, etc. And so I spoke with different entrepreneurs who asked me, okay, you've been through that experience, you know, kind of having a job and having your company. And how do you do that? How much time do you spend on your job versus, you know, your business? And when and what do you tell to your employer or to your client? And so I think it was a very good way, you know, because I had the best of both worlds, you know, kind of. So definitely like do it using your own way, your own path, and everything is possible, you know. That's what is amazing with entrepreneurship. Anytime, anything, you can adapt.
And so tell us more exactly about that. How did you navigate having a type of job or stable situation with an employer while growing the business? What was the structure? How long did you do that for? And what would you recommend others who are thinking about doing something similar?
Yeah, so I actually had like 2 jobs for 10 years, you know, having my company and working on the side or having 2 companies at the same time. That was hard. Obviously, I had nights where I couldn't sleep, you know, basically I had no time to sleep, you know, but I was younger, so that was okay, you know, but I spent some nights working on my accounting for my business from like midnight to 7 a.m. Then I was taking like a break of like 1 hour or 2. And then I was starting my actual role as a consultant, as an employee, you know, so that was really, really hard. And so, but usually what I was doing was to work like 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, you know, for my clients. And then at night or on the weekend, I was working for myself and for my company. So definitely you cannot do that a lifetime. For 10 years, it's okay. So now I wouldn't want to do that again. You know, I'm 40 plus. So, but I guess I'm happy I went through that because it's done, you know, and I had so much more experience and I've been through a lot, but I learned so much, especially on that industry, you know, on finance and IT consulting and all. I've seen kind of everything, any situation, etc. So I'm really happy about that experience. But yeah, you cannot work 2 jobs your entire life. I mean, I don't think so. Maybe some people can, but not me.
Well, that's really brute force and stamina. And so those 10 years, you have basically 2 jobs. How did you keep your sanity? What were the processes that you put in place not to have a breakdown because a burnout, right? Because I got my first burnout after I think year 2 or year 3 in my business. And I was only working on my business and I had my first burnout. And then it is so hard to climb out of it. So how did you manage to do those 10 years without a burnout?
For sure. I think being surrounded by good people and good friends, especially when you are abroad, you know, you don't necessarily have your family. So it was really helpful. I went out a lot. I think, you know, going out, you know, like as we say in New York, work hard, play hard. I think it helped me a lot to go through that and to be able to vent, to relax, etc. You know, so that was my style at the time, but I was in my 30s, you know, so that worked well. I think today, even if today I have just one job, I think working out just one, which is pretty weird. But I think working out and exercising, I actually do now Muay Thai and boxing, you know, so it's helping me actually, you know, I kind of feel like a fighter, you know, so it's really cool. I like it. I like the atmosphere and it helps me to have a good balance, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really started CrossFit in order to build my stamina. It's because I wanted to become a business athlete. I make the direct correlation in being an athlete and being good in business. I think there is something to it, and they are correlated somehow.
Right.
I think you can really build like energy, stamina, focus when you have this kind of high intensity workouts. And a lot of successful entrepreneurs that I meet, they have some type of an outlet, like a physical outlet.
All right.
And I'm with you with when I started my first business, I used to think work hard, play hard. And I think that's because it's being fed to us that this is the way, this is kind of the sexy way. It's like work hard,
Right.
play hard. But that is really what put me in the hole because I thought I could do it. I thought I
Yeah.
could do both. I thought I could do it all. And I didn't. And that's something I learned much later. It's like, no, actually, you need to know what works for you. I know I need what's non negotiable is I need 7 or 8 hours of sleep. I need to work out 5, 7 hours a week. I need to eat very healthy. I need to have a very regulated schedule, regulated structured schedule. And I can definitely not go out as we used to go out like monkeys because then it's Monday and you already lost like 2 years of life expectancy, by the time you're restarting your week. And, that's definitely a good recipe for burnout. But again, we're all different in, how we handle pressure and so the amount of intensity that we can handle. For me,
Yeah.
that was definitely too much. The stress of having a business, the roller coaster of having a business, also the naivety around thinking that, I had been working as a marketing director for 10 years. And then I thought, I'm going to start my marketing agency and I'm basically going to make a lot more money than before, choose my own hours, be my own boss.
For
It's going to
sure.
be fantastic, like rainbows. No, this is a very romanticized version. And I thought I was prepared because for 10 years I had read all the books. I was like, oh no, I'm prepared. I've read 2 books and I've listened to podcasts. So I thought I was ready.
Yeah, for
A
sure.
very, very naive way. I think if people are thinking about starting their business, they might not realize that you might have your craft. Let's say you're a marketer or you're a tech person, but having a business is going to be very different. You might not be at all able to focus on your previous skills. So you might not at all do anything tech or anything marketing related. You might be like focusing 80%, 90% of your time doing business development. So if you don't like sales and you haven't done sales before,
For
buckle
sure.
up. Your day to day is going to be so different than just being in marketing implementation all day. So there's something to that when you're thinking about starting your own business. And that I think is even more so a reminder to talk to the right people. And sometimes friends and family are not necessarily the right people, especially people who haven't done what you're looking to do and who work normal jobs, because they're very quick to give what you mentioned earlier, those unsolicited advice. And I really believe that a lot of very good business ideas die because of this unsolicited advice from friends and family. People saying, no, it's not going to work out, or no, you can't do that. And because we're very vulnerable when we start a business. And of course, we're seeking support from whoever is in our social circle. But I really think it's very important to be very selective as to what are your resources for mentorship and who are you paying attention to, because you're starting a business, like your attention can go so many places, your energy can go so many
For
places.
sure.
So being very careful and very selective with who you're surrounded yourself with and also who you're listening to, especially in the beginning.
For sure. And plus, I guess today, and because of social media, I mean, I love social media, but there is, this image of the entrepreneur where, you choose your hours, what you thought at the beginning, and you're free and you can be in Bali while making millions, per
Yeah.
day. And it's so wrong, to think about that. But because of these like fake coaches online, etc., it's driving, people to the wrong side of entrepreneurship, And actually now you have too many entrepreneurs. So they are not really entrepreneurs. They think they are, or they would love to be one. So they have all of the, they read the books, they got the podcast, but they don't realize what the struggle is. And it's going to be a struggle for sure. And even, I was mentoring this young lady. So she's still a student. She wants to be an entrepreneur. She doesn't know in what and when and how, but she wants to be an entrepreneur, and she's trying to lead her life based on what VCs would expect from her or would expect from her business. And, I was like, oh, wow, like you're 20 and you're already caring caring about the requirements from VCs on what they want to see in your business. Well, you don't even know what your business is going to be, And so I was really surprised, and I felt it was so strange, to see your life through the eye of a VC. Well, basically, when you have a business, don't think straight about VCs. And by the way, so many people think that raising funds using VCs, it's super easy. You just need a cool idea, a cool PowerPoint, and you're gonna have millions for it. Sure, try, and good luck.
Who thinks that? And especially as a woman, isn't it like less than 2% of the VC funds allocated to women-owned, women-led businesses?
Still, many people think it's easy, because you see every day some startups, like raising millions for a cool idea, especially around AI, etc. But what they don't realize is the non-visible part of the iceberg, So all the hard work, they went through. Okay, there may be some like guys going out of Google. They may be able to raise funds super easily, but they spent like 10 years at Google. It was really hard, process. They went through so much rough IT, etc. And so, yeah, they have the good network, and that's why they're able to raise funds, But it's not like, hey, we had that nice idea, look at it and give me 50 millions. But yeah, still many people think it's too easy. And I guess, through COVID, we had crazy valuations on the market, in tech especially. So people keep that in mind, and yeah, I think it's an easy game, which is not.
Yeah, the media and people in general love a good story of an overnight success, but it's definitely, people don't look at the 10 years of grinding before, 20 years of grinding, and the 4 companies before that failed until the 5th one is successful. Nothing is glamorous about the dirty middle part, where you're not making a lot of money, where you're trying, where you're failing, where you're ashamed, where you're basically naked, alone, and afraid in your business. People don't like to talk about that, or they talk about it once they're already behind the rainbow.
Yeah.
People don't talk about it when they're in the trenches and in the sufferance. People don't really like to talk about that, but it's definitely the less sexy part of entrepreneurship that I think you have to be ready for.
Everybody go through it.
Right. I don't think I know any entrepreneurs that haven't done at some point in their journey a mini breakdown and a little nervous breakdown.
For sure. But that's why I feel it's interesting, and it's important to share it as well. It's cool to share your success, and it's amazing. And we do want to see more and more success. But I guess failures are really interesting and important as well. So yeah, do share it.
Absolutely. I'm with you. I love to understand what went wrong and the wisdom that came with it. But people are not always necessarily willing to share. I think it's because as an entrepreneur, I think it's like a branding exercise, right? You want to look successful. So, when you're going on podcasts or if you're giving an interview, you don't necessarily want to talk so much about your pain points, especially if you haven't overcame them.
Yeah. So true. And by the way, when we were talking about working out earlier, it made me think about, so I love working out now. And I really like, the parallel we can make between like boxing, like Muay Thai, like, what I'm doing now, and work. And, so I used to think about me that I'm not good at attacking people, I'm not the one doing the first step, to attack someone, but I'm very good at defending myself. And when I went through my first Muay Thai class, so, we do sparring in Muay Thai. So you kind of fight with someone. And I realized that I was so bad at attacking, I was just waiting for the other one to hit me. And there I was like, oh, okay, I got hit. Oh, okay, another time. And there I realized that actually I need to defend myself, and I need to punch the other one. And I need to have my game plan, basically like understanding my opponent and trying to hit him back or hit him first even. Him or her, by the way. So, and actually now reflecting on that, it's helping me at work as well, or in my professional life, because now I know that from me. So I saw that when I do Muay Thai, but at work as well. So I'm not attacking straight people, but I'm better at defending myself and understanding my opponent as well, So now I see life as a fight, but as a fun fight.
As a game almost. I love hearing that because I feel the same way, and I grew up doing judo. My sisters grew up doing judo. They're black belt. I stopped at green.
I didn't know.
Yeah, no, nothing to be proud of, but I definitely have much more of a mentality of defender than attacker. And even like games, handball, for instance, I wouldn't be the one trying to score, but I would always defend, my side. Same thing for being competitive. By myself, I'm not competitive. I have zero desire to win on a one-on-one. This is zero interest. However, group sport, I love it. I love going hard with the team. Then I get really competitive and you don't want to be in front of me because definitely I'm a bit of an asshole. But I love the idea about you making that correlation with Muay Thai and being able to attack and go for what you want as well and not just be passive and waiting for a strike, but going for it. Muay Thai, do you spar and do you hit people in the face? Or that's not one of those?
So yes, we do, but it's nice. It's like, hey, I got you, so just to show like, okay, I got that point. But like we don't really we don't hurt each other, it's just for fun actually, but which I like, we're fighting for fun, which is even more enjoyable, I feel like.
I love it. So you don't kick people in the teeth, you don't remove people's teeth.
You have protections for your teeth.
I love it.
By the way, mine is super, I love it because it's written, which is exactly me, thug life.
I love it. It's making me want to do Muay Thai. So Elsa, do you have any either celebrities or influencers that you look up to and that inspire you? If you could have a dream dinner guest over, and it can be someone deceased, who would it be? So either an influencer or a celebrity that you're looking up to, a role model, or a dream dinner guest.
I'm thinking about two women. The first one, so she's based here, I guess, in Montreal. C'est Caroline Cozzi. She's a Canadian businesswoman, and she created a nonprofit as well dedicated to helping women to access decision-making roles or something. She's really interesting. She's really smart. She's beautiful. She has everything. And so I'm really interested every time she has a podcast or a panel or something. So I would love to meet her for real and to talk more with her. And I guess the second person would be Jessica Alba. So, she's an actress and she created the Honest Company. And last time I saw that interview of her where she was talking about the beginning of the Honest Company, where so she was not confident enough to run it on her own. And she felt she needed business partners, which is fine. But she put way too much trust in these business partners and not in herself. And actually she made the wrong decision because it was really hard. They were not the right people. And I was really surprised to see this beautiful lady, thinking, going through this self-doubt, thinking she was not enough for her own business, and for her own idea and everything. And so she was letting them lead the company and kind of at some point, they were taking credit for her work. And I felt it was super interesting because I don't know, from someone like her, I would expect she would know she's perfect, and she's way enough, so if she goes through self-doubt, then of course I'm going through that as well. So I would love to meet Jessica Alba.
Yeah, I mean, I love her as well. I remember seeing interviews, the same thing about the same thing. And actually it sounds like it's quite common that a lot of people just don't feel good enough. So we feel that we need partners, we need tech founders, we need someone good in finance. We think always I don't have that, who can I partner with, when sometimes we actually already do have what it takes to be successful. But that's something I think you build with time by being brave and then building upon it, building confidence.
And I would say even before having business partners, you'd better be confident because that may hurt you, if you're not confident enough, if you don't know your worth. At some point when you talk about money and power, people can change. So before thinking having business partners and before meeting them and everything, know your worth and be confident because that could kill your business.
And Elsa, if you were to meet your 20-year-old self today, what would you tell her?
I would tell her to trust herself and to listen to her gut feelings. Because I feel that for many years, I wanted to be pragmatic and to follow what I'm told I should do or to trust these figures that I see on my laptop. While sometimes, my gut feeling was telling me, it's not going to work out. And actually, I should have listened to myself. So I would tell my 20-year-old self, listen to yourself and listen to your gut feeling.
I love that.
Gut feeling is actually, it's experience, it's expertise. It's not just a gut feeling. It's actually way more than that.
I love that. I think trusting yourself and giving yourself permission is so important and so potent, especially as an entrepreneur, where sometimes you will not have direction, mentorship, or anyone trustworthy to ask, most of the times, you already know what you're supposed to do. You don't need to ask 52 people around you
For sure.
on what direction to take for your business.
Yeah.
And Elsa, so what's coming up next for you, and how can our listeners connect with you?
So you can definitely connect through LinkedIn. That's my best business card. I don't have business cards anymore. I hate it. And what's coming up next? As I was telling you, I'm going through a transition. So I may come back in a couple of months or something with something new, with a new venture. So let's keep in touch and I'll tell you more next time.
I have no doubt that there will be a new business baby coming out soon, knowing you. Thank you so much for being here on Parlez-Vous CEO and sharing your story, Elsa. It was such a pleasure.
Merci, madame. See you soon.
And that wraps up today's episode. I am Anne-Lise Cailliez, and I can't wait to join you again next week. Thanks for listening to Parlez-Vous CEO today. If you enjoyed the show, leave a 5-star review. It helps us keep going. And connect with us on Instagram at Parlez-Vous CEO. I am Anne-Lise Cailliez, and I know some days are harder than others. On those tough days, think back to why you started. What you're doing today matters, even when you can't see the results yet. Ideas are great, but it's what you do with them that counts. Find everything we talked about today at parlezvousceo.com. See you next week, and you've got this.